Hello and welcome, friends. My name is Lynn, and I cannot believe it's already 2026. Happy New Year, everybody. This is my flip video. If you're new to my channel, I put out a flip of the Spellbinders club kits. Flip videos are where I create at least one flat, one layered, one interactive, and one pop-up card showcasing the club kits that I opt to work with. And I really love this series because I like stretching myself to create a variety of different styles of cards, from very simple flat cards to maybe some more involved pop-up cards like this one. So sometimes these videos can be a little bit on the long side, so what I'll do is timestamp this video, and if there's one card in particular you want to see me make, you can skip right ahead to that. So let's get started with my flat card. My flat card today features the press and foil of the month. That's a change. So many new changes introduced by Spellbinders with this year's club kits. And starting with the fact that this one I feel makes a lot of sense. And not to toot my own horn, but I sort of saw this coming. Better press plates are really amazing because they're multi-purpose tools. You can letterpress with them and get a gorgeous effect like I have here. And especially if you do use cotton card like I have here, the texture is really lovely. The debossing is beautiful, and this cotton card takes water really great also. I'm not using a ton of water to do this really simple monochromatic sort of spot coloring, but all the same, the watercolor just moves really nicely. And that's why I really love watercoloring my better press projects. But the other thing that you can do with a better press plate is you can foil with it. And so I always felt like there were times that I really wanted to glimmer with my better press, but in past years I've gotten both the better press and the glimmer of the month, and I always felt, well, the glimmer plates can only do the one thing, and so if I'm going to do any foiling, I should really reserve it for that. Even though maybe there was a design that I really wanted to do where I foiled the better press plate. So now we don't have to be faced with that decision, because they are now calling the better press plates press and foil plates, and the club kit is combined into a single one. So what that means is that if you were previously signed up for either the glimmer of the month or the better press plate of the month, you will now be enrolled in the press and foil of the month. And if you remember, with the glimmer of the month, we always got like a roll foil. Well, with the new press and foil of the month, there will be something that you get along with it as well. And I didn't use it today on my card, but there's actually a stencil set that coordinates with this, where you can actually use it to color in that left hand side with layered stencils. So I just really like doing this quick, easy, very loosey-goosey spot watercoloring, and I even put a little bit of that same color behind my sentiment, because I really feel like, you know, there's the rule of threes. I've got the bird that I watercolored, the butterfly that's up in the stamp, and I really felt like I needed a third element of this blue, and also there's that visual triangle that that I wanted to create too. And so the sentiment really makes sense for that. Now with a colored pencil, I'm just quickly adding a little bit of a drop shadow just to give it a little bit more dimension and make it look more dimensional than this really is. Because again, this is my flat card, which I like to always try to get into the habit of making, because sometimes it can be really nice to have easy mailers on hand. I just got done sending out my Christmas cards, and you always have to be a little bit careful going over the weight limit or the thickness limit, because that can trigger extra postage. So that's why I really love always making sure to remember to create flat cards. Next up, I've got my layered card, and for my layered card today, I am going to be using the large die of the month, which is it's really pretty cool. Like, look how big this it's kind of like a Polaroid frame, but it's got a postage border to it. I think that's pretty cool. And I actually thought about using this as a shaker card because conveniently it's got, the instant rectangle die where you can cut out and turn this into a proper frame. Or you could alternatively just cut the outline and then layer on top whatever scene it is that you want to create. So lots of ways you can craft with this. There's this really lovely they're kind of I think they are daisies, but what I did was I am going for like a very monochromatic look in the tans, the browns, and then I brought in a hint of this gold. It's actually Hero Art's Hero Wax. And what I did was I just kind of tapped some of those flowers with some of that gold wax. And one of the cool things is that you get two dyes that will get you sort of the flowers, and then you have another dye that gets you two of the flowers so that you can layer even more on top. And whether you want all of the flowers to be the same color or you want most of them one color and then just a couple that stand out as a separate color. So what I did with the dye that has just the two different flowers, I applied even more gold wax to those so that they're a little bit brighter, making it feel like it's a little bit more in the foreground. Now, this being my layered card, I can use some foam, and I'm still using low profile foam, which is about 1 millimeter, 1 to 2 millimeters thick. And this should still be an easy mailer, but you never know with all the layers that I'm adding, it may actually go over the 1 ounce mark, which also might trigger extra postage. So, one of the things so typically, I would actually be using my 3D glue gel behind these flowers because I find that that's a lot easier than cutting up these little itty bitty strips of foam. But the current tube of 3D glue gel I'm using, I'm not too sure if it's because it's older or it's just a weird one, but I did notice that some of the cards after they dried, it kind of dried with the 3D glue gel dried with a little bit of a wet spot, which I'd never seen happen before. So not too sure what's going on. I just want to work through this current tube of glue gel and then see what's what in with the next one. But meanwhile, unless I have like multiple layers of cardstock so that it could absorb whatever that extra moisture is, I'm gonna try to only use it in those instances. Now, I kind of forgot to stamp. I thought about this in advance too. I just totally forgot to stamp out my sentiment. Thankfully, the Spellbinders Clear Stamp of the Month, great quality photopolymer stamp, and it's stamped beautifully. I mean, I did use a stamp positioning tool, but I didn't really have to go in for a second impression. And I did decide to this postage frame is huge. It's basically A2 size, so you could make a really fun shaped card with this if you wanted. But I wanted to actually use it on my card, and one of the things that I was going for is so the sentiment says, you're one of a kind. And my idea was that in this postage frame, there would be everything would be kind of this very monochromatic with the touch of gold, all the browns, kind of very very dull almost. Besides the gold, I mean, the gold makes it look kind of interesting, but I wanted it to be sort of a very vintage sepia almost look. And I'm gonna add these hummingbirds, which are also from the large die of the month. I'm gonna add 3 of them in total. Again, rule of odd numbers, and the visual triangle. I'm gonna try to position this in a triangle. And there's one little hummingbird that is in color and is breaking out of the frame. So my thinking was, it's almost like, those hummingbirds are living in a sepia tone world, but when they break free of the Polaroid picture, they come into like full color real life. So, and I think it kind of goes nicely with the sentiment, you're one of a kind. So, the other way of looking at the card is maybe, in this flock of hummingbirds, you're the colorful one, and that's the way to be, is, be uniquely you and be that boldly. So, so that was the idea behind this card. I had a lot of fun making it, this card, and I really adore these little hummingbirds. So that is my layered card. Next up, my interactive card. This card, it took me a long time to make this card, but I really like how it turned out. This is such a simple card, but I love it. And sometimes it just goes to show, like, the simplest cards can sometimes, take a long time to make. They're kind of deceptive in that way. Okay, so this too is pretty large, this die, basically A2. I'm holding this against an actual A2 card that is landscape top folding. And what I want to do with this outline die is position it so that it is extending beyond the fold at the top. I'm going to be making a shaped card. You can do this with basically any die that is a nice outline die. All you want to do is just make sure that where the fold is on your card, that you don't completely cut through it. You preserve, I would say, at least an inch if you can, because otherwise thinner than that and your fold gets a little bit weak. This one's kind of, it's kind of pushing it because it's less than an inch, and it has the shaker element on top of it, which makes this very like front heavy. So so just be careful with that as a consideration. But what I'm gonna do is once I cut that, that's gonna be my shaped folded card. And in this die set, there's another die that is just a smidge smaller, and it actually will cut out kind of like a frame. And so when you cut those two together, you get a really nice thin sort of frame where you can kind of see like individual petals of this flower. It almost reminds me of like the NBC Peacock logo. And I think that's kind of where I was, my head was when I was coming up with the concept for this card. I'm going to start my card off, although technically this piece might be a little bit on the optional side, but I'm starting it off with a layer of black cardstock using that exact same die, but cut in full. So I've got the full arc at the very top there. And so if you wanted to just start decorating your card from there, you could do that. But I'm going to turn this into a shaker. So what I did in advance was I took that same outline die, I combined it with the smaller die that cuts out this frame, and I've actually cut it out of foam that already has adhesive on the back and the front. You could, if you don't have foam, you could always use that combination of dyes and die cut out of just maybe some thick cardstock multiple times and stack them up. And that way you'll have enough depth and dimension to create a shaker well. Because one of the first things that I thought of when I saw this was, hey, wouldn't it be cool if like each of those little petals was a shaker well, and maybe I could put like different shakers in them. And so I wanted to give myself even more room, so I doubled this up. This foam that I'm working with is not super thick foam. It's maybe 2 millimeters, 2.5. And the thing is that the reason why I needed a second layer of foam is because I wasn't intending on putting anything super dimensional inside as my shaker bits. I'm really just using some really beautiful star confetti from Trinity Stamps. But I assembled these petals in advance, and in this set there are some really beautiful flowers, and I created this rainbow effect, but I created the flowers in a monochromatic feel, so that it just looks like it's basically kind of looks like it's just embossed in there. And I love the look of that, but it does add some dimension. And so I just want to make sure that I have a deep enough well for even thin confetti to bounce around in there. Just to make sure that things don't stick too much, I did take a little bit of baby powder and just brushed it against the well, really everything, just in case there was some extra stickiness from anything at all. I don't want these, because these little confetti pieces are pretty lightweight, and they would definitely kind of stick to something, or maybe glue down permanently if there was anything sticky in there, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's kind of nice to have some things stick a little bit so that all of your shaker bits don't go to one place. But all the same, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't tacky at all. I did a very, very conservative sprinkling of shaker bits. I don't really want to go too overboard with these gorgeous sort of silver foiled stars. I just want a little bit there. And the sentiment I stamped into sort of the center of the flower. It says, "Hope this card brightens your day." I really think that like a rainbow card that's a shaker with star confetti just feels like that's the perfect sentiment to go with it. I really love how this turned out, and I'll give a close-up look at the end, but I really like that effect of those monochromatic panels with the flowers sort of inlaid on top of them. It really has a neat effect of you still can appreciate the rainbow of the individual petals, but they're really pretty and more interesting than just plain cardstock. So love that. The shaker bits don't move around too well, but they do move. So I'm happy for that. Okay, my fourth and final card features the 3D embossing folder, and one of the bonus extra goodies that you get if you are a Club Crate member. So the Spellbinders crate is basically the folks who get it all. So if you get all of the club kits, essentially just our little shorthand for that is just picking up the whole crate, which I think is pretty awesome. And you get so many extra perks with that, like your discount goes up from 10% to 15% when you shop. You get free shipping coupons and early access to things, all the good stuff. So really fabulous. Now, with this panel, what I'm doing is I took this die that is really just very lovely shape, and I'm going to do a partial die cut. So I've got my circular cutting plate positioned so that it only covers the die up to where the flower is. So with a 3D embossing folder, one of the things that's really awesome about it is that you have like these different sort of dimensions. Like there's some areas that are going to be more raised than others, and so that large flower off to the side, it's got some really pronounced raised petals and elements to it, as compared to that sort of stripy background behind. And so what I want to do is I actually want to keep the flower petals to have this really kind of interesting broken edge to the frame, so that it looks like, because this flower petal is so dimensional and pronounced, it looks more like it's kind of raised and sort of in front of this aperture opening that we have here. So that's kind of something that you can do, just to create some more interesting, especially with these cool sort of asymmetric designs. It's just a way to create a little bit of a more interesting opening. And for my pop-up, what I'm going to do is a pretty simple pop-up mechanism, but I do want to line this up onto my card base. Now this is probably the hardest part of this card, because what I want to do is die cut that same aperture opening through the card front. Now remember, only die cut through your card front, not both layers. And that way we have the same opening, and you can match up your embossed panel to this. And in this way, when you receive the card, it'll look one way when the card is closed, and then when you open it, it'll reveal more, and there'll be a little bit of a platform that pops up. So this is always a fun style of card, and it's really super easy to do, because the piece that actually fell out, you can actually use. If it weren't for the fact that I kind of did things a little bit out of order and again forgot about my sentiment, I often get a little bit excited about what I'm making, and then I forget that there are some things that need to happen first. So if you're watching this, what you want to do is anything that you need to do to this panel, say for instance stamping a sentiment onto it, you want to do that first before you attach it to your pop-up mechanism. Okay, so let's go ahead and make ourselves a pop-up mechanism. I've got this little bit of scrap paper here, and it measures 3 inches by, I just cut it down to about 1.5 inches, but really the only thing governing this is the size of that aperture, because it needs to be hidden by that panel that we just cut out. And all I did was I cut this, or I scored it at 1/2 inch, I scored at 1 inch, and then I flipped it 180 degrees and scored at another 1/2 inch. So how did I arrive at those measurements? Well, the first 1/2 inch on both sides, those are glue tabs. And on the side that only has, 1/2 inch score line, that basically is the height of the platform. We're doing a platform pop-up, and the space that you have to work with is essentially, the portion of like above the aperture opening, because when you open this up behind the card front panel, that little space there, that's all you have to work with when you install this pop-up mechanism. So I'm just going to apply adhesive to just those 1/2 inch glue tabs. But here, as you can see, with this glue tab getting attached to the back of the card front. It really needs to stay below the aperture opening. And then your next sort of length is that happens to be 1.5 inches. That can only be as long as your aperture opening that you cut out, that piece, because that's what's going to get glued to this. So it can't be any longer than that piece. And it really doesn't need to be that long. You only need enough to really adhere down this panel. So this looks pretty cool. I'm always racing to get to the point where, you know, my pop-up mechanism is installed and works and I can start playing with it. And, you know, I forget about the practicality of the fact that, oh, I'm gonna need a sentiment, and now it's kind of on top of this pop-up mechanism. It's gonna be very hard to stamp on top of that and get a good stamping. So I actually did tear that panel off. You'll see me do it because I leave the footage in here. But save yourself the trouble. You know, stamp your sentiment first. But it is helpful to put it in place so that you know where what is going to be visible when the card is closed. And I drew sort of a pencil mark outlining where that flower is, or where the aperture opening is on the left edge. And that way I know what's hidden before you open the card. Because one of the things that's really fun about this technique is you can have the card basically look one way when it's closed, and the fun of a pop-up card is just that, you know, the party's kind of on the inside, and that's why I'm gonna try to keep everything like super monochromatic on the outside, just a whole lot of white. But it's when you open it that you get more color and more life. So this is about the point where I realized I really should have stamped my sentiment, because at this point that panel is already installed. Now there's like a couple things that I could have done at this point that I actually did consider. One being, I could just die cut that shape again and then glue another panel on top. So that would have been an option, but that would have made that whole sort of pop-up kind of, this is, you know, me trying that out. It would have made it really thick. The other thing that I could have done is the clear stamp of the month does have a coordinating die of the month, and it actually has you know, outline dies where you can cut out every single sentiment. But I wasn't really, sometimes I like that look of, you know, die cutting out your sentiments and then, you know, having that as a little bit of extra dimension. But I really just wanted a really clean, you know, front of the card where this panel is like really flat. And I like that contrast against the 3D embossing folder. So I didn't want to add more dimension on this panel. I wanted this panel to be really flat because the 3D embossing folder is where like all of the texture is. And so I just tore off the other panel. Thank goodness I use heavyweight cardstock for my pop-up mechanism, and that might have lost a little bit of thickness, but it I think it'll still be strong enough and just fine. So I always like to use 100-pound at least heavyweight cardstock for pop-up mechanisms, because, you know, if they get exercised a lot and, you know, people open the card a lot, which you like to hope that people do, then you want it to stand up to that sort of usage. So I've got my sentiment stamped out. And I'll go ahead and reattach this panel now. So you just put glue where it's visible through the front, and you can just position this panel and nestle that right back in where it originally fell out in the first place. So now that that's installed, I can start to turn my attention towards decorating. And so, as I mentioned, what I like to do is just have a lot of contrast between the outside of the card before you open it, and then what you see on the inside of the card. So these, I believe they're lilies, are from the large die of the month, and they are really, really pretty. There's actually a set of lilies from in the small die of the month too. So that one's smaller. This one is larger than the one that you see in the small die. But what I was thinking was that, yes, on the outside of the card, there's, really lovely floral embossed pattern. And I wanted, once you open the card, for there to be like just this really lovely bouquet, or like an array of florals. And initially I was thinking, so I die cut and assembled 3 of these, again, odd numbers. And I was thinking I would put 2 of them on the left and 1 on the right. The challenge is that this, what I want to make sure of as I'm positioning things is that I don't want any of this to be visible when the card is closed. And so, the little pencil mark that I drew that outlined where that embossed flower is, or essentially the edge of my aperture opening, that's gonna help me really know what's going to be visible and what's not going to be visible until you open the card. And it doesn't leave a lot of room for too much else. So what I ended up doing was putting a couple of these flowers on the left, and I actually kind of like that one of the flowers is actually on the pop-up panel, and the other one is on the card base itself. So it makes it feel like a little bit more dimensional that way. And then with my third flower, I thought, well, maybe this would be a nice little small pop of color on the front of the card, the outside of the card. So I thought that might be an interesting look. To be honest, I don't know which way I prefer it. I almost think I liked it better before I put that flower there, but I kind of like it both ways. I'm not sure I could have put it where I wanted it on the inside. And then I've got this really cute hummingbird. These are really fun to put together, and so I've got this cute hummingbird, which I sort of want to put it as if it's flying towards the flowers, but the one that I assembled is facing left, and it just doesn't seem like there's a good place for it. So, but I need something on that right hand side because I feel like it's very weighted towards the left, with all the flowers being over there, and there's like just no color on that right side. And it worked out that adding a couple of these leaves looks really nice there. And I'm grateful that I remembered, because I was very, very at a loss for where to put this hummingbird. But thankfully, the large die of the month, you can actually assemble 2 hummingbirds, and they're facing each other. So that's really nice. And it's not as if you have to kind of die cut and then use the back, flip to the back to get it to be mirrored. They actually make like 2 bird bodies, one facing left, one facing right. And then the other elements are shared between them. And so I was able to add a hummingbird to the left, he kind of feels like he's flying towards the thank you, which I thought was kind of fun. So here is a final look at each of my 4 cards. This is my flat card that features the Press and Foil Club Kit, which is new this year. This is my layered card, which features the large die of the month, and the sentiment is from the clear Stampin' Die of the month. And the sentiment's really awesome. I love all of the variety of sentiments that we get, plus the fact that you can get the coordinating dies to go with it, and that scripty font, and especially the ones that like this one where there's a combination of different font types, is just really, really beautiful. So this is my interactive card, and it features the small die of the month, and the sentiment is from the clear stamp and die of the month. I think that's my favorite card this month. Let me know in the comments if you have a favorite out of these 4. This final card features the 3D embossing folder and the large die of the month, and as well the exclusive that die set that comes for or that gets included for folks who are part of the All Clubs Crate membership, where you get all of the various different Spellbinders clubs. I'm going to leave links to everything in the description box below. You have until the 5th of the month, if you're currently subscribed club member, to make any changes to your subscriptions for the month before you get charged. And if you're not a club member, then on the 6th through the 27th is when new sign up or enrollment is open to everybody. And so if you're interested in any of these club kits, I hope you'll click on my affiliate links, which is in the description box below. And a big thank you in advance to folks who actually use my affiliate links, because they that earns me a small commission at no additional charge to you. Thank you again for checking out my video, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.